Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Rob Manasier with us today. Rob is in New York. I'm in Oaxaca. He's a top guy. I've already been enjoying my short convo with him prior to this podcast. Has been presidents for 34 years at IFP Films, startup mentor, and yeah, CEO at InFocus Brands. So at any stage of company brand team that is not a service but results provided through a unique white label internationally deployed team model, creating business results. That didn't sound super good, but that's at least what I'm reading here. This podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. Podpire.com is the reference if you want to start your podcast and monetize it real quick. We help you do so with lead gen, sponsors, and YouTube AdSense money. We have a free ebook on our website if you want to grab it and learn how to start your AI podcast in 2025. Rob, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks, Charles. Glad to be here. Spent my whole life starting companies. Started my first one at 13, haven't stopped a million years later, all around the globe. InFocus Brands, a portfolio of companies that literally is focused on launch, growth, scale, and exit for any business product. We kind of run the gamut of anything that happens with commercialization.
Let's pick up on our conversation prior to this pod. What happened with TikTok and how should founders and CEOs adapt to that? What does that mean for them?
There's always macro trends that we can't control, right? A lot of the ones we look at are weather, horrible events. I lived through 9/11, so you can always bring that one up to mind. You always have to be aware of regulations and legislation. Part of, I think, being a founder is being aware of your environment, macro, micro, competition, collaborations. So, it's not going to stop. That's the beauty, I think, that keeps us all interested in the startup world and running your own companies, but it's also the negative, right? There are things out of our control that will just take you out. TikTok's just one of many examples. We're living right now through an age of the idea of a lot of tariffs. And we were just talking about cross-border between Canada and the US. A lot of other countries, a lot of businesses are going to be affected if that actually happens.
Right.
And it's happened before.
And TikTok, can't I access it with like a VPN? Is it as simple as that?
Well, that depends on where they end up. Right.
Yeah, I hope Elon doesn't buy them. That would be like way too much power and discourse.
Wouldn't that be anti-monopoly
Well,
laws?
I'm for competition and I don't like when governments intervene, but this guy, he's bought X. And at first, I've loved Elon, right? He was my favorite entrepreneur. And if you are on X nowadays, the only top two polls that I keep getting on my feed is him and this fucking Alex Jones guy, the conspiracy theorist. And I keep flagging, I don't want to see that. And it keeps popping back. And that and Trump, of course. So, yeah, that's what Elon did to this platform. He didn't bring any freedom to the people, like Joe Rogan keeps on repeating, like a robot. And let's not get in conspiracy theories, but if he buys TikTok, he's gonna screw it up. Is it already screwed up though, with like all the 5 seconds serotonin zombie content?
I would say so, but I'm going to go back to your comment about him controlling content. There's nothing we see, hear, or read that isn't paid for by somebody. And I think what people have to realize is we have to filter our own out. Right. There's a lot of noise, and what is sent as factual is not fact. What's given to you as news is not always news. It's always slanted. So, what he's doing out in the open is just what they've been doing for decades. Right.
True. Yes. How would you filter that? I have a truth GPT that I prompted to be impartial and call me on my own bullshit. How do you specifically filter that?
Yeah, so there's been a few techs that we've been involved in that look at news and rate it for veracity against facts. But at the end of the day, it's your worldview and what are you reading into it? What can you take? And let's go back to, since we're talking about running companies and staff, what can you use from it to either prove a point, to make a point, to educate, right? I think the thing that's missing and has been missing since the beginning of the tech age is we are not taught how to use and filter tech. Like TikTok's just another example of a lot of information coming at you. And what happens, instead of opening up our minds, we fine tune to a tribe or a cult or a clan or a team that thinks like me. Like what I love about it is people coming at me from a lot of different directions with a lot of different perspective. Sometimes, and I know you did it because we were talking about this before we started, people say things to you like, where the hell did that come from? Like I just looked at the same piece of information. I have no idea what you're talking about, but it's fascinating to me to watch how people process. Because if we know how they process in business, we know how to deal with them. So.
Yeah, I fully agree. Sometimes my stepmom is just bombarding me with WhatsApp messages, citing TikToks as, like real science.
Right.
And I'm like, what is this? Like, do you know this is content? Do you know that this is someone pushing your buttons? Fortunately, my wife that lives with me and understand how to filter that uses ChatGPT and can think by her own. But I think, especially old people, they're very vulnerable to that. Why do you think there's no one educating them on that? Is it because it's not sexy? Why isn't there like a famous TikTok page that you would see in your feed, of course, educating you on this information and how to consume information?
Because most people, it's not sexy, for one, right? It's not consumerable because you actually have to stop and think, right? We don't live in an age where people are actually analyzing a lot of stuff. They're getting a lot of information, and whatever's the closest to them they pick up, or whatever matches what they're already thinking or proves what they're thinking, that's what they're locking onto. People aren't taking time to critically think and analyze. And I think, and that goes back to media for 100 years, right? The negative always plays in our brains way higher than the positive, right? And most people, they're bored by education and training.
And isn't that ultimately like a massive source of unhappiness? Is it like people have these crises, in which they realize that they're not going in the right direction? Can that be a very strong justifier of that?
Well, I hope in the end that becomes the justifier, so people realize that most of the stuff you see online is a bunch of crap and it's fake, right? I love those ads that show the influencers and how they really make their videos, because they're in a sewer making themselves look glamorous. And no offense to anybody trying to make a living and doing their thing, but at some point reality has to be shown. Like the light has to show on reality. And there's nothing wrong with doing influencers and all that stuff, but you have to realize that that's not the be all and end all. And most people will not be successful. Like most people will not be successful in things they try. We fail more than we succeed. That's just being human.
100%. Now, when it comes to being a founder, you're a mentor, you help young founders almost on a daily basis.
And old ones too.
And old ones, which is great. I believe more in youth, though. And I'm not that young. I'm 31. I'll always believe more in youth because old brains, I think, are more solidified and not open enough for change and for scale.
That's a bias, Charles. That's a bias.
No, but I mean, you're not close-minded. But
I'm ancient, though. So
it's a statistic. It's a truth that like older brains are less malleable, less neuroplastic, isn't it?
Biologically speaking, but that's also on an individual level. I think for me, it's always the combo of youth and experience. I think that's the magic formula for any business, anybody, yes. Right? Is to take it all in from a lot of different perspectives. So
100%.
All I got from our conversation, you just called me ancient, but that's good.
No, maybe it's because I just wrote 2 articles this morning about gerontocrats running Google and Apple to the ground with their AI that is not present or not.
That is funny, actually. I like when politicians talk about technology. It cracks me up.
Oh, man. It makes me sad. Then I convert it into laughter to, not kill myself. The startup founders, new ones, whatever their age, how should they start a business? Nowadays, generally speaking, we have ChatGPT. We can prompt it as a business coach. We can feed it data. We can create content. whatever their business models, right? Like, what would you recommend if I'm starting from zero today?
Get out and talk to who you think is your customer first. No technology, just go out and have conversations, not with your mom, not with your friends, with total strangers who you think would buy your service, and just talk to them and see how they think, what they buy, how they make decisions of buying. You don't have to say a thing about what you're trying to do. That's where I make most of my startup founders start. It starts with the person-to-person conversations, because the thing that's missing in this day and age is, because of technology, people have lost soft skills, the way to observe people. Like, what we say is not what people always take from us. It's our body language, right? 70% of communication is nonverbal. So those are the things that they have to learn how to deal with, because for the rest of your career in your business, you're going to be dealing with people. If it's not clients, it's staff. And you better understand how to read rooms. So,
Right. I agree with the body language stuff, but for low level people, like if you look at my body language, it's pretty autistic and you won't be able to decipher really what's going on for most people, right? Then can
but
we
if I'm
scale?
selling to you, I learn things from you. If you're my
Okay,
target
so
market,
what is my body language telling right now?
you won't make eye contact.
There you go. Why? Why is that? Is that because I'm uncomfortable, or is it because I think it's a waste of time to watch people in the eyes?
Yep. Probably a waste of time.
There you go. So I could look at you like this, right? I don't mind, but anyway.
But then again, you're not my target market, right? If I'm selling to you, I have to know that that's part of what I have to deal with.
Right. How do you spot your ICP? How do you decide who you want to work with? Do you start with Ikigai in mind?
No, I start with who has the biggest issue, who wants to make the biggest gain of something I'm starting.
Okay. But what if it's a problem I'm totally unfamiliar with? Like I need passion to resolve that problem with the Ikigai platform. No, like I need to have that heart into it, else it'll just be money.
Passion's not always what you're selling, right? Sometimes people just need something, and usually we start the paradigm of need versus nice to have.
Right.
If you're talking about nice to have, then you literally have to drive passion and emotion. If you need it, emotions are important, but it's a whole different mindset for marketing, operations, customer service, sales. So,
And usually, how do you discover that need? Is it like a need that you have yourself? Because if you just go out and talk to strangers, do
well, I
you?
mean, it starts with research, right? And observation. I think entrepreneurs are great observers, right? We live through a process, or like, we can fix that piece. So it starts with something you love, right? And I always say to startups that come to me and say, I love X. And I was like, think about it long and hard before you make your hobby and your passion your business, because you won't be doing what you're doing, what you do as a hobby. Most of your time will be spent on business, boring operations. What you love isn't your business. I love filmmaking. I've owned a film company for a really long time. A lot of my time is not in production. It's in the edit room, which is boring, or it's
Yes.
in business development or in writing. So, you have to think long and hard about what you really love in your hobby, and can you make that a business?
Right. And can ChatGPT be like the one that will be doing these boring tasks nowadays with ChatGPT operator and all these workflows?
Yeah, I love AI and ChatGPT, but it's not going to replace real intel with real people, because at the end of the day, they're not cutting the deal. They're not signing the contract. So it's a great place to start. We train a lot of our junior staff on how to use ChatGPT to get themes, but the final work output has to come from the human, because the human has nuance that isn't there yet. And I'm not saying it won't be there in the future. It isn't there yet. And there's a lot of garbage, right? Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. Yeah. You need to be smart to smartly prompt the GPT that will produce something that is like you. You need to correct it constantly because it learns right on what you tell it. Eventually, it gets pretty good. It got better than I, for sure, in the last couple of years, which is pretty impressive. Then, once you have an ICP, how do you A/B test your offer till you get product market fit?
Yep. So we love A/B testing. We do it in multiple ways. Obviously, you do landing pages, you do offers and see where the call to action drives the most metrics, and then you go with the one that's leading, right? We rarely spend for our clients a lot of money on those tests because we double down with spend once we have some validation in the marketplace based on the A/B testing. We A/B test everything. Messaging, operation. I mean, there's a million. I mean, anything in business can be tested. And I think the biggest problem with most startups is they have an idea and they're so locked into the idea that they don't think about other options. So that's a bias, right? We all have bias. You have to kind of do away with it. And A/B testing helps you prove that sometimes what you think works isn't going to work.
How do you spend your time nowadays? What's a day in your life look like?
So the good thing about my day in a life is I don't sleep. So I get 22 hours a day out of a 24-hour day.
What?
I have teams all over the world. So I'm in 14 time zones right now. So if they don't need me, I'm working on some new technology that we're trying to launch in the next year. We have a new consulting firm coming out. So I'm putting the operational pieces to that. You know, spend time with family, spend time with my kids. It's a full day. I don't really see life. I don't see life or play and work as a balance. I see it as a puzzle. So I work when I have to and I play when I can.
Yeah, one unified flow. I'm the same, just that I sleep 8 to 9 hours.
What?
You sound pretty smart for someone that doesn't sleep.
Sound can be deceiving, my friend. I've never needed sleep. I was born this way. So it has nothing to do with something I've trained. I was just genetically wired differently.
So I'll just extract your genes and feed it to an AI, understand what's going, and
make some
like
sheep. You'll clone some sheep that'll never sleep or something.
No, I'll inject you into me like epigenetics or something with nanobots.
That's scary.
Is that a good startup idea?
Nobody wants me as a clone or a duplicate. You can
No,
ask my
not a
family.
clone.
They don't want two of me anywhere. So
I just need the sleep gene. Like, yeah, ideally it would be fun not to sleep, right? Like when life is that enjoyable. I keep mentioning to people that I want to live forever as well. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to live forever. Do you think that these people just don't enjoy life as I do? That's why they don't want to live forever?
Well, I think the problem with living forever is you see what age does to all humans. Right. And listen, I have some aged relatives that aren't happy because they aren't even 10% of what they used to be. And I think that gets tiring. Like that's for anybody, right? If you're constantly not doing the things you love anymore because you can't, that's a hard one. I always thought I was going to live forever, but now I'm not so sure. And I don't know if I want to.
Don't give up.
I'm not giving up. I'm just saying there might be something beyond this that I have to go explore.
Yeah, that'd be fun, but I think we can discover it without you dying. That's just like shifting a state of consciousness and understanding reality, which is an incredibly difficult problem to solve. Brian Johnson is onto something, that's for sure. I think this guy will crack longevity and living forever in the next 20 years, 100%.
We better find some new planets then.
No, I think their planet is pretty nice. I think Elon trying to colonize Mars is and launching dicks into space.
We don't have the resources. We're like a parasite on this planet.
I think that will be solved as well. We're seeing lots of progress in the green tech space. What do you think?
I do. I think a lot of it is fake green, but and I also think that the habits of humans don't match up to what they say. So I still think they're focused on, especially in North America, consumable and throw it, right? Instead of reuse.
The thing is, I think AGI will crack longevity if Brian Johnson doesn't do it in an organic way, using his brain to understand things, research, and come up with a cure. But AGI and AI requires humongous resources. And ironically, AGI could also fix the climate change thing. But it does take massive GPUs as of now. That's like a core problem that the world needs to solve.
It's very expensive to use any of those systems. And
right.
It eats up a lot of fossil fuel.
Yes. Your podcast, what is your thesis behind it? What are you seeking to accomplish?
Uh, we're talking to startups and inventors because there are a lot of programs and a lot of books that talk nonsense and theory versus the experience and the practicality of it. And this week's episode is about free. Nothing's free, as we just said before, right? And people are sold this bag of crap that says they can do free programs and build a product. It's impossible. And if you have no money, I get it, but there's sources of funding, and that's part of one of the rules of being a business owner. You better learn to talk to people to get something from them. You're either selling them, raising money, or figuring out some kind of strategy to get what you want done. So it's all about our experiences together, T and myself. We've been together a few years. We built a few products together. We have a lot of shared experiences, and he has different experience. And we're just trying to talk honestly to people. And quite honestly, and you know this, when you talk honestly to people, some people get pissed off. And they don't want it. They want to be sold the dream. And I'm just not into selling dreams. I want to sell reality, because reality is really cool when you get it right.
Yes, and it scales forever, and I think it's the best way to get to very large fortune. I think ultimately truth prevails, but the public markets would tell a completely different story. How do you react to hate? I have a hate GPT that trains my brain to receive feedback constructively and motivate me when I need it.
Yeah, so I love all feedback. So I can learn from any feedback. At a certain point, you have to just do away with the stuff that has no. So if somebody's telling me they hate me, if they matter in my circle, like, are they a big client that's saying this, or somebody that wants free services from me? I don't really care. You can hate me all you want. You're not going to do anything for me. And you know, the other thing we've always believed in is I don't care if 1 million people see my post. I care that one person sees it and spends $1 million with me. So I'm really targeted on who I speak to. And I'm always very honest in InFocus Brands with who we talk to. Companies that can't build their own new innovations, and multiple entrepreneurs that have failed before. They understand what we're talking about, because we don't want to make it complex. We want to simplify, right? You have a very simple operation that does really well because it's simple. It's not too complex, right? You don't have 14 tabs open to do this.
I have 28 right now.
But not to do this. Maybe everything else you're doing.
Yeah. When I'm in a crisis, I have like 52. Yeah. And then
when I'm in a crisis, I have 6 tabs open. And if I have more than that, then I've screwed something up. So,
well, I'm rarely in crises. Well, sometimes just too creative, right? It's like the beast is unleashed.
That's different. I was talking operational simplicity.
Right.
I'm not talking about creative. I'm talking about operational simplicity.
Yeah. How does one do that? Like, my definition of operational simplicity, and people might be annoyed by that, but again, it's GPT. I have an operation GPT, and I have to-dos on a daily basis, and it's incredibly productive and efficient. Everything is on ChatGPT for me. How does it work for you?
How does that work when the inevitable daily crisis happens?
I don't have these. So I don't have employees. Thankfully, last time I had employees, I let go of a 200 plus employees team. That was 3 years ago. I don't have investors. I work with my dream clients. I'm rich. So I just don't have these problems, these urgencies. But I have personal crises in my life every like month or two, which is a pretty good ratio. Granted, I impose so much on myself. Yeah, I don't have these. I don't have these. What do you do?
Well, we have a lot of clients. We have a lot of staff. So inevitably humans have issues, and you have to deal with them. And they're not always earth-shattering issues. And I think what we do really well is prioritize. But we also believe in team to fix everything. Like, if you make a mistake and you're honest, and it's accountability is a big thing for me. And everybody, if you meet anybody who's ever dealt with me, self-accountable, but also holding you accountable is huge in our culture and our team and our clients. If you do that, a lot of the crisis lessens because they prioritize it. Like, is this really a big deal or something we can deal with tomorrow? And I think people understanding that and being trained to understand that, which is probably what you can turn some of your op GPTs to, like, teach them how to prioritize would be a great tool for anybody in business that has staff and clients that are always calling them. So,
right. Thanks for the value today, Rob. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, we exist on very few places. A few years ago, we took down our websites because we're a white label deploy company. We didn't need them. LinkedIn is probably the best place to find everything we're doing. We have a new website launching with our new consulting firm probably by next month. InFocus Brands.
Robert Manasier.